coconut.
Okay, as promised, here is my killer tier list. This is the true list, backed by science and the ultimate truth of the universe. Take this list with a grain of salt from the tears of joy you will shed by experiencing this list. Here's how the point system works. There are 4 to 0 points per section, and each killer's power is ranked for each section. They are added together at the end, and the results are listed in numerical order. We will be looking directly at the killer's power, since that's the primary ability that makes or breaks a killer. Perks are not taken into consideration for several reasons. Some perks make up for a killer's weaknesses and skew base results for each killer. Not every player has every perk unlocked for every killer, especially new players. Playstyles between players are varied, and some players have an easier time with some tactics than others. One perk loadout may work with some tactics, but not others. Some meme builds are good on different killers, but this makes it too difficult to determine if it's the killer's ability doing the work or the perk build. Rank isn't considered since the ranking system itself is flawed, and the rank reset makes it worse. Survivor skill isn't considered since there is no guarantee that you will face more or less skilled survivors in any given match. My personal skill with each killer isn't considered strongly, but plays and tactics that I've witnessed are taken into account. The section system makes personal bias a little less influential in the outcome, since it can be spread out among the different sections and have little effect on the killer's total rank. Of course, each section and point allotment in itself is an opinion, but maybe by creating a system like this, others will pick it up and create their own lists. Then, by making more lists, the averages can be taken from many different people, and then a true killer ranking list might be possible. Anyway, let's move on to the criteria. These scores try to focus on the effectiveness of each killer's power in various situations that often come up in every match. The sections are Effectiveness at Pallets. This score looks at the killer's power during the moment a survivor is heading straight towards a pallet with the killer following behind. The survivor drops it without stunning the killer. The points given are for the ability of a killer's power to help the killer gain a hit in this situation. Effectiveness at Loops. This score looks at a killer's ability to shorten or end loops, ideally with a hit or a down. Effectiveness in Jungle Gyms. This score looks at how well a killer can gain a hit in a structure or jungle gym. The various main structures of maps make this score a little more difficult to make since some killers have advantages on some maps. Ability to create map pressure. This score looks at a killer's ability to create map pressure. While a clear definition hasn't been made, this score will look at how well a killer's power helps them be present or have a presence over a large area of the map. Effectiveness in catching up in a chase. This score looks at a killer's ability to catch up to a survivor during a chase and end it with a hit. Effectiveness in tracking. This score looks at a killer's ability to locate survivors with their power. Effectiveness with and without add-ons. This score acts as a bonus from their add-ons. A higher score shows that a killer might have powerful add-ons, but doesn't need them to be successful. A low score represents a killer who might have strong add-ons, but needs them to be successful. And a mid score is a mix between the two. By looking at each killer's power this way, we might have an easier time comparing them directly and creating a truly objective base tier list. It should be noted that there are several variables that can't be applied to this process because they either don't happen all the time or they are hypothetical situations that may or may not occur. These outliers should be disregarded for the purpose of creating a baseline of killer effectiveness. Here's the list. As of recording this, I haven't added up the score totals, and I actually have no idea what you're looking at right now. I'll provide timestamps for each killer, so you can watch the sections you're most interested in without needing to go through the whole video. We will go through each killer in their portrait order. First on our list is the Trapper. If there's a trap at the pallet already, this can stop a survivor in their tracks. Unfortunately, this will not always be the case, mainly because of the Trapper's limited number of traps, the number of pallets, and the varied layout of some maps, giving survivors more options to escape. This reduces the chances that a trapper player would place a trap at one particular pallet. With the right placement, a trap can end a loop very effectively, but like the pallet score, this is affected by the number of traps available versus the number of paths a survivor can take. Add this to the good loops where survivors will be expecting traps and simply disarm them, and we have this score. Placing a trap during a chase around a loop will cause a survivor to move on to a new loop, and the trapper will no longer have a trap. The number of available traps versus the number of jungle gyms make the odds of trapping a survivor at a gym pretty low. Also again, trapping the good and predictable structures comes with the risk of traps being disarmed due to them being expected. With all traps laid out, and survivors aware that they're facing the trapper, their movements will be influenced by the fear of running into a trap. Unfortunately, with this awareness comes the likelihood of them finding his traps and disarming them. His power stops him in his tracks. This isn't going to help him catch up to a survivor. Survivors setting off traps like popcorn will give you an idea of where survivors are, but you don't actually want this to happen. Survivors getting caught in his traps, on the other hand. What I believe to be the trapper's best add-on resets the traps every 30 seconds. This creates more map pressure without wasting time picking up and resetting traps. Unfortunately, at Ultra Rare, this practically necessary add-on won't be available for many matches. The other add-ons try to remedy some of his other weaknesses, the number of traps, trap visibility, and ease of disarming, but they really aren't that useful when the trap is disarmed. His extra trap add-ons come in various sizes, and might be his second best add-on since it helps with trap placement. You can reset a trap without putting one you're carrying down. Okay, so the Wraith. The Wraith can ring his bell all day, but it's not going to get him a hit on a survivor. The Wraith's power doesn't shorten or end loops. Cloaking does not stop a survivor from effectively using a jungle gym. While cloaked, his movement speed is 126% and allows him to cover a lot of ground while cloaked. His power isn't threatening by itself and only covers movement across the map for this section. The Wraith's power allows him to catch up pretty easily. Uncloaking to get the hit is possible, but it depends on the path the survivor takes. Though the Wraith's power doesn't directly locate survivors, the Wraith can find and sneak up on unsuspecting survivors making noise. The Wraith's add-ons can completely change how he's played, from becoming faster and a better chaser, to becoming more powerful in stealth, to becoming a better ambush killer. While some of his add-ons are weak, some of his better add-ons are common and uncommon, which can make up for this. Unfortunately, without add-ons, the Wraith's power is very limited. Now the Hillbilly. There are two situations that can happen here, and possibly end with a down. A chainsaw sprint gets to the survivor before they actually make the pallet, or the chainsaw breaks the pallet fast enough to give the Hillbilly a hit soon afterwards. This score is due to the lack of control over the timing of his power, since you can't cancel it immediately. Depending on the loop, the Hillbilly can catch up and down a survivor. If the loop is too short or has too many turns, his power becomes less effective than a normal hit. I believe that in most structures and gyms that hitting with the chainsaw is a bad idea, since the distances and turns might make a chainsaw a liability. Depending on the map, Billy can cross the entire map with one charge of his power, and at the end of it, down a survivor in one hit. While this is a best case scenario, the potential and threat of his power is very great and undeniable. In an open area, his power can catch up and down a survivor in one use of his power. With more twists and turns during a chase, this becomes less effective though. Although the Billy can travel the map very quickly, his chainsaw doesn't actually track survivors. I'm not well versed in Billy's gameplay and add-ons, so the majority of this score is based on conjecture from my understanding. His add-ons can make the use of his power more efficient, in addition to easing some of his drawbacks. Okay, the nurse. Yep, she can catch up to a survivor before they reach the pallet, or ignore it completely and get them on the other side. She can blink through walls, ignoring most loops entirely. Ignore walls, vaults, and corners? Yep. The nurse can cover a great deal of ground, but not as efficiently as Billy with her stuns after each blink. Closing short and long distances at will and through walls makes her very effective in this situation. Like the Billy, the nurse's ability doesn't allow her to track survivors. Like the Billy, I don't have enough experience with the nurse to give an accurate score, but my understanding is that for a new player, the add-ons might hinder their ability to learn how to play her effectively. She's powerful without them, and can become obscene with them in experienced hands. The Huntress. If the survivor is running in a straight line, throwing a hatchet's going to beam them in the head. The Huntress can hit survivors over short walls, but can be easily looped, and throws can be avoided on loops with taller walls that make connecting with the hatchet impossible. Depending on the distances between vaults, she might be able to land a hatchet, but this strongly depends on the timing. With her slow movement speed and lullaby, I don't think she can create much pressure. Cross-map hatchets are a thing, but I don't think they happen very often, do they? With the throw of a hatchet, she can end a chase at pretty far distances. Her power doesn't allow her to track survivors. Additionally, her lullaby makes her easier to avoid. The Huntress's add-ons add status effects to her hatchets and opens up an option for an insta-down. None of them instill an unnecessary downside and only make her power more unique in addition to making her power more efficient without altering her playstyle. The Shape. Like the Wraith, the Shape can stare all day and it's not going to gain a hit on a survivor. It will, however, power up Evil Within and create the opportunities to activate Evil Within 3 later in the match. Stalking slows Mike down, so using his power to gain Evil Within while in a loop will not gain an immediate hit. It will, however, almost guarantee an insta-down at a later point if the survivor cannot break line of sight and escape the loop. While in Evil Within 3, he can vault quicker to gain some ground and possibly gain an insta-down. Outside of it, he's just staring again. His music, while in Evil Within 3, can create a situation where survivors will enter stealth mode, slowing the work on gens. But other than that, he doesn't have much going for him. The Shape's power doesn't help in a chase. While he can insta-down during one, it's his standard killer movement speed that's going to get him in range to do so. I might be wrong, but I think there's a limit to how far he can stalk a survivor. Standing on a hill to try and spot someone might not be a viable tactic. Although, similar to the Wraith, in Evil Within 1, the Shape's power can allow him to sneak up on survivors working on gens. His add-ons can change how he's played, but depending on the map, it becomes a liability rather than a benefit. He can insta-kill with an add-on, but it hinders him in such a way that the add-on could possibly never actually activate before the gates are fully open. Lisa. Like the Trapper, there must be a trap present for this to work. Unlike the Trapper, the chances are higher of a trap being present since she can set 10 at a time. The placement isn't too important either. If the trap is in front of the pallet when triggered, a teleport will yield a hit before the pallet is dropped. If the trap is behind the pallet, when triggered, the phantasm may cause a survivor to panic and jump back over to the waiting hag. Or, if they keep running, a hag can teleport, ignoring the pallet and continuing to chase, possibly gaining a hit soon afterwards like the Hillbilly. This is my favorite tactic, but it does rely on a premeditated setup. If a trap is set at a loop already, she can do well in this situation. If there is no trap, then she is forced to either set a trap or chase through. The outcome of setting a trap is determined by the actions of the survivor, so the reliability comes into question. A well-placed trap in a gym or structure will cover many of the paths a survivor will take through one, giving more opportunities to score a hit. Survivor unpredictability can make this trap fail though. Similar to the nurse, the hag can travel a large distance in a short amount of time. She does need to set traps, and a survivor needs to trigger them, but cautious survivors will be crouching around the map at a slower pace, or running survivors will trigger them freely, giving you an opportunity to initiate a chase. Only with good trap placement can a hag's trap effectively end chases. The hag's traps are only triggered when a survivor trips it within close proximity, so you're able to discern the general locations of survivors, even if you can't teleport to them immediately. The phantasm will also face the survivor, giving you the general direction that they ran to. The Hag's add-ons increase scores in other areas such as map pressure and tracking, making her more effective in those areas. The majority of her add-ons don't change her playstyle, so they strictly enhance her power similar to the Huntress's. Additionally, a recent patch removed the majority of the downsides to her add-ons, making them even better. 2 of her add-ons remove her teleportation power entirely. Thankfully, they're rare and very rare, so they can be disregarded. Her best add-ons range from common to rare, making them readily available for practically every match. The Cannibal. Like the Hillbilly, Leatherface can break pallets quickly. Unlike the Hillbilly, Leatherface doesn't gain a lot of speed through his power, so the chances of hitting a survivor before they drop a pellet are pretty low. Again, like Billy, if the loop is long, there's a chance that Leatherface will be able to down a survivor but at a slower speed. Although he has an easier time connecting with the chainsaw against a survivor weaving between obstacles. It's possible to score a chainsaw hit, but it's probably more likely that you'll go for a regular hit in this situation. His power is only effective at short range, and makes his map pressure non-existent. Similar to the Billy, the chainsaw can end a chase with a down, but he can weave around obstacles with a chance to throw a tantrum. Like the Hillbilly, the chainsaw isn't good for tracking a survivor. Like the Hillbilly, I'm not very well versed in Leatherface's add-ons, but I'm pretty sure that Billy's younger brother just copied his add-ons. The Pig. The Pig's ambush itself can't break a pallet, and I'm not sure how effective it is at being used to catch a survivor before they make one. Her reverse bear trap won't help in that situation either. I've seen players use her ambush attack to mind game survivors and score hits. Update to the Pig. Her crouch is faster, so using it in this situation might be more reliable after some practice. Due to the difficulty of the tactic and the unpredictability of survivors, a score of 2 was the original score for this section, but I upped to 3 since you won't need an add-on to practice this tactic. Her ambush might be less effective in this situation, since a survivor has more options for escape. Crouching doesn't move fast enough to create map pressure, but her traps can take someone off of gens and healing, allowing the Pig to move on to someone else, but the ease at which a survivor can remove them makes them less effective. I think during a chase I crouched and ambushed a survivor once. I'm not sure how viable this tactic is, but I'll give it a 2. Please, forgive my pignorance. Similar to the Wraith, she can sneak up on unsuspecting survivors. Also, when a trap is removed, she's given a notification. I don't think this is enough to give her a score of 2, however. Because the Pig has 2 powers, she has less add-ons that affect one of them. The lower rarity add-ons affect her ambush slightly, while her rarer ones affect her traps and puzzle boxes. Again, I'm not well versed in them, so I'm mostly speculating on this score. I do know that her add-ons are split between her 2 powers, effectively giving her half the number of add-ons as other killers, depending on how you want to play the match with her. The Doctor will see you now. The Doc's power can stop the pallet drop, locking the survivor on your side for a free hit, but if they're on the other side of a pallet, no amount of shocking is going to get a hit for you. The Doctor's power doesn't directly stop or slow a loop, but it can stop a vault. With good timing, a shock can prevent a vault and gain the killer a hit. While he can't cover ground faster than other killers, his treatment mode will reveal survivors in the area through screams and little electrical sparks on their portrait. Some survivors will abandon the area entirely once the Doctor starts coming near. The Doctor's power might disorient a survivor enough to make a mistake during a chase, but using the power slows him down, not the survivor. While in treatment mode, the Doc can find survivors very easily within range of his power. It can be very difficult to lose the Doctor once your madness has risen. His add-ons change the effects of his power, but it doesn't change his playstyle. The add-ons that enhance his power's effectiveness still have downsides, unlike other add-ons that have been patched to have the downsides removed. Now for Freddy. His power won't stop a survivor from reaching the pallet, and if they're on the other side of a pallet, Freddy's power will do nothing to help in this situation. Again, his power won't stop it. And again, his power doesn't help here either. Again, Freddy's power does not affect this situation. Again, Freddy's power will not help him catch up to a survivor. Now we're talking. While in dream state, Freddy can see the survivor's aura if they're outside of his terror radius. While they can get out of it pretty easily, he can still discern their last location, or use that information to locate other survivors if they're waking up the sleeping survivor. His add-ons enhance his power, but some combinations almost remedy the dream transition problem Freddy has that makes him difficult to use. In my opinion, his add-ons are pretty good. It's too bad he's not. The Clown. Like the Doctor, the Clown's power isn't that useful if they're on the other side of a pallet. Unlike the Doctor, if the Clown uses his power before the pallet, it's still possible for a survivor to be able to make it. And this situation is what the Clown was made for. A well-placed bottle can slow survivors trying to loop, allowing for a hit. Trapping a survivor in this situation can also give the Clown a chance to reload bottles if he runs out. His gas can slow survivors enough to buy time to score a hit. Similar to Leatherface, the Clown's power is suited for close combat and lacks in map pressure. His gas will slow survivors down, allowing for a hit, but the arc of the throw gives them time to react at farther distances, avoiding the gas and finding a different path. His power doesn't help with tracking survivors. I believe that his add-ons are similar to the Huntress's. They change his power to help it in different ways, but none of them are requirements. The Spirit. While the Spirit's power can help her reach a survivor before they reach a pallet, being unable to see them makes it slightly more difficult to gauge the swing distance. If they're on the other side, it's possible that they'll move towards you if you stand still. This is entirely dependent on what the survivor does, so the score is impacted negatively due to the uncertainty. Depending on the loop, the Spirit can catch a survivor watching on the opposite side of a loop, or mind game the survivor into abandoning the loop, allowing for a hit. The Spirit can mind game herself sometimes though. Using her power, or not using her power in the situation, can gain a hit or force a survivor to leave the area, allowing for an easy hit. Like the Nurse, the Spirit can travel a far distance with one use of her power, but the recharge time hinders her ability to use it this way. Her power, with good headphones, allows you to catch up to survivors. The invisibility of survivors during its use, though, will result in many jukes. Her power renders survivors invisible. That's not very good for tracking. One of her add-ons has people saying that it might be overpowered, but due to its rarity, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Her add-ons lessen her weaknesses similar to Freddy, and she is borderline reliant on them due to the downsides attached directly to her power. The Legion. While Legion's speed and ability to leap pallets can gain a hit on a survivor easily, his power does not reliably down a survivor in a timely fashion without add-ons. Their power will always take at least 3 hits to accomplish a down, or 2 if you decide to lose the chase and let the timer run down. For the same reason as pallets, this score is also the same. See above. Like the Spirit, the Legion can travel a far distance quickly with one use of their power, and is in the same way hindered by its recharge requirements. The Legion can catch up easily with his power, but it will not down them in a timely manner. When they connect with their power, the ability to see the heartbeats of survivors makes it quite easy to find them, if they're in range, and they don't run away, but sound is muffled and scratch marks disappear. I believe that Legion is absolutely dependent on add-ons to be a threat. There are only 2 add-ons that do this, Frank's Mixtape and the Stab Wounds Study, which are both very rare. The other add-ons might make it easier to hit survivors, but they aren't downed because of them. I honestly believe that the Mixtape is going to be nerfed, so enjoy it while it lasts. Well, that's it. As I scored this, I didn't pay attention to the totals, and graded each killer in a section at a time, rather than each killer at once. So I don't know what the totals are, until I make this graphic. This kept the rankings a surprise to me. If you decide to adopt or change this tier list formula, be clear about the rules you use and process at the beginning, and be sure to stick to them for each killer you rank. You can also simply change your personal point ranking in each section for each killer and go from there. My goal was to be as objective as possible and create a uniform system that each killer could be measured against, and I think I did well enough considering how much variation can affect the scores. Let me know what you think. I'm sure some killers aren't in a spot you were expecting, or like, but in the end this is still based on my thoughts, opinions, and experiences, so make of them what you will. I'll catch you guys later in the fall.